Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about why do economies grow? Why do some countries grow rich while others stay poor? It's one of the most important questions in economics, and it's what I want to explore today. My central question is why do economies grow, and what challenges arise in sustaining that growth over the long run? We'll look at what drives growth, how governments shape it, why it's hard to sustain, and what that means for us. Let me start with a fact that surprised me. For nearly 800 years before 1700, the average person's income barely moved. Growth was essentially zero. If you were born poor, you died poor, and so did your descendants. Then, around 1700, something changed and has never reversed. In the 20th century alone, income per person in the UK rose more than tenfold. That sudden break in history after 800 years of standing still is exactly what we're here to understand. So, what actually drives growth? Economists point to five reinforcing engines. One, productivity, producing more from each hour of work, the ultimate source of higher wages. Two, capital investment, the machines, factories, and roads that make workers more effective. Three, human capital, the education, skills, and health of people themselves. Four, technological innovation, the new ideas that resets what's possible. Five, institutions, the property rights and stable rules that reward investment and risk. The simplest way to think about it is more inputs, better inputs, and smarter ways to combine them. We can all watch five engines working together in the Industrial Revolution. Britain after 1700 had steam powered technology, capital hungry factories, and institutions shaped by the Enlightenment. Just look at the numbers. Industrial output grew about 3% a year, 6 times faster than agriculture. Cotton mills jumped from 200 to 1400, and the share of people in large cities went from 10 to 40%. And it happened again after World War II. The golden age of 1950 to 1973 brought sustained growth across the US, Europe, and Japan. For a recent example, look at China since 1978, the fastest economic transformation in history. Follow the line on this chart. China's economy went from about $0.15 trillion in 1978 to nearly $19 trillion in 2024, growing above 9% a year for more than 3 decades. Income per person rose roughly 85 times over. But do you notice the curve is flattening? Growth slowed to about 5% in 2024, and that slowdown leads us straight into the harder part of the story. Government shaped growth too. In 2020, and the 2028 crisis gave us a near perfect experiment. Two countries faced the same shock with opposite playbooks. The United States chose stimulus, a $787 billion recovery act plus a near zero interest rates, and got sustained recovery. Germany chose restraint and balanced budgets and kept sliding in and out of near recession. Two tools are at work: fiscal policy, spending and taxes, shapes demand, while monetary policy, central bank rates, steadies prices and the cost of investment. Now, the hard truth: fast growth creates its own headwinds. Four forces can stall even a thriving economy. Environmental limits cap how far input driven growth can run. Inequality means that the gains often flow to the top. Demographics: aging, shrinking workforces strain output. Japan's fertility rates sits near about 1.34. And financial instability: bubbles and debt can turn a boom into a sudden bust. Here's the statistic that captures it. Since since the 1900s, since the 1990s, only 34 of 142 middle income economies have reached high income status. Sustaining growth is exception, not the rule. Let me make that concrete with two warnings. First, Japan. An asset bubble burst in the early 1990s, and it took 34 years for the stock market to regain its 1998 peak. The economy was nearly flat for generations, caught in deflating and aging. Second, Venezuela. A collapse without a war. Money printing fueled hyperinflation over 1 million%. GPD, GDP per person fell 88%, and about 30% of the population fled the country. In both cases, weak institutions and mismanaged policy turned past success into prolonged decline. So, what does this mean for me and where I live? When my community argues about school funding, job training, or new infrastructure, it's really arguing about human capital and productivity, the very engines behind every growth miracle. That leads to my recommendation. First, invest in people, not just plant. Education, skills, and health over endless capital. Second, make policy predictable. Create credible rules matter more than raw spending. Third, keep growth inclusive so prosperity is broadly shared. History's lesson is clear. The lasting growth comes from people and ideas. So let me pull this together. Growth comes from five things: productivity, capital, people, ideas, and institutions. Good policy can sustain it or squander it. And the limits we face, environmental, demographic, and financial, are all real and rising. The big takeaway: growth is a choice, not a guarantee. So I'll leave you with one question. If growth depends on the choices we make today, what will your generation choose to invest in? And these are my sources.